Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your Washington Commanders update, and I'm your host, Candi CWall Waller, bringing you all of the updates from Washington Commanders training camp. You all, now look, let me take a minute to soak this in because it has been quite a while since I've done this show live. I have not done this live in a long time, I feel like. And maybe it hasn't been that long. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's been since the draft. I don't know. You all can drop in the chat the last time you see me do this live. However, I'm doing it now, not recorded. Not recorded. I said, you know what? Let's give it a shot live and see what happens. So I'm going to give you all a moment to join in on the live stream because we have a lot to discuss. If you are watching this on Bowie Television, hello, hello, hello. You may want to jump in one day on the live discussion whenever we have them on Bowie_TV YouTube. And if you haven't caught it on TV and you're in the Washington metropolitan area, you can absolutely catch it on Verizon Channel 11 and Comcast Xfinity Channel 77. So as you all are joining in on the live stream, make sure you drop a hello in the chat. We're going to try to acknowledge as many people as we possibly can. And we're going to absolutely try to acknowledge as many folks as we can in your questions. Definitely hit that like. If you have not subscribed to Bowie TV on YouTube, then what are you waiting on? Not only is there Commanders content, there's Baltimore Ravens content as well. There's just a ton of information central to the city of Bowie, as well as Prince George's County as a whole, the state of Maryland, you name it, it's all there for you. But I am bringing to you updates on the Washington Commanders. So drop in the chat your hellos. We'll try to get to as many questions as we possibly can, as I mentioned before. And this was kind of one of those things where I said, you know what? Let's do this one live. Here's why. The depth chart came out today. First unofficial depth chart came out today. And then the Commanders are preparing to go on the road for their first joint practice and preseason game against the New York Jets. So, with that being said, if you haven't said hello yet, make sure you drop in the chat to say hello. We have to do the hellos to Mama Waller and all of the above as well. So you all, I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. And this is an opportunity for you to be able to engage with a credentialed member of the media to ask all of the questions that you have. You don't have to inbox me. You don't have to send me a message. You can just literally ask me on here. And if I can get to it, I definitely will get to it. So let's just go through. If you watch the other episodes since the beginning of OTAs, I try to take you all through what does the day look like? What do we do first? Then what do we do after that? Then what happens after that? Try to get to everything. I'm going to do the same thing today. So by now, you all know that head coach Dan Quinn opens up with a press conference. So, and hello to Lamar Bland. He's jumped on first. Make sure you say hello to Mama Waller. We starts out with a press conference in the morning, and which I really like that approach, right? Because he kind of is proactively giving us information on what we may have questions on. So starts out there. So we're going to start there with some of the key takeaways from Dan Quinn's morning press conference. And then I'm just going to take you through the day. So let's start off with DQ's opening remarks.
One-on-ones down in the low red zone. Back to the line of scrimmage, team run with the big guys. Then we'll finish again with some situations, 4-minute, 2-minute end of the game where it's going to flip-flop who was what and who was where. I'm also excited to have Joe Gibbs in the house today, so that would be cool to spend some time with him and Darryl Green as well. So can't think of two guys who's meant more, to our organization than them two. So really cool to have them here hanging with us today. And then you'll see an unofficial depth chart in advance of the game at the Jets come out this week. Good news, I think you'll see some rookies competing at or near the top, and they've earned the right to compete for that. Still unofficial, and like I said, I'll let you know when we make final decisions through joint practices and other things that I certainly want to see for that as the entire process. But I've been pleased with the guys and the competing, and so for the guys who are listed near the top at that, they've earned that right to do that, and no better time over the next 2 weeks than to go battle against some other teams and some practices and some games. So the next 2 weeks will be a blast, and kind of like that ramp up kind of starts into tomorrow as we get rolling for that. So really cool couple weeks ahead that we'll really have to hammer down.
So one of the things that I have been saying on previous episodes, as well as saying on every single show, it's wait until joint practices. Let's just get to joint practices. Let's get to DQ. Hey, if you don't believe me and you don't want to listen to me, that's fine. I can kind of accept that. But definitely listen to Dan Quinn. One of the things you all have known about me, if you've been watching for a while, and if you're new here, hopefully you'll start to pick up on this. I pay attention to what they say and what they do. And once it starts to link, I say, oh, okay, now it's all making sense now. What he's saying and what he's doing, it mirrors, it matches, it's aligned. Okay, I'll listen. He's a stand-up dude. He's saying it without kind of saying it. But he's still pretty blunt in saying it. So, yes, this right here, the joint practices, the preseason games, this is when it gets real. Not to mention, we're right up on just finished out day 10 of training camp. So, DQ with that reminder of these next couple of weeks are going to be a blast. This man absolutely loves what he does, if you cannot tell already. This is when it gets cooking. This is when it's starting to warm up. This is when it's starting to warm up. I want to mention, right, I shared on the previous episode, the Commanders have already made some roster moves. They made another one again today with the release of Armani Rogers. We all know, myself included, this was a player that had high hopes under the previous regime. He experienced an injury, was out for some time, and it's just, wasn't where it needed to be for this coaching staff and what they're already seeing in other players. So I mentioned that because it's important to note already there's been 3 roster moves within the last week, and some rightfully so, others due to injury or what may have, but still there's been moves when there didn't necessarily have to be. But hey, they said, we're going to keep digging for talent. That's exactly what they're doing. You could go ahead and drop in the chat, Commanders fans. And if you're just tuning in, you're watching from the Coaching from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders update. I am your host, CWall. We're doing this training camp style, diving into initial reactions to the first unofficial depth chart and training camp insights leading into joint practices and first preseason game against the New York Jets. Bowie Television, make sure you all are subscribed. You're hitting like, you're hitting love, so you're getting all of the notifications and updates. It's been a while since I've done this live. You might want to tag in your favorite Washington Commanders fans too. If you have some Washington Commanders family and friends, link them in. Tell them jump in, because they definitely do not want to miss these insights. While you're watching, make sure you drop in the chat any takeaways and things that you picked up from head coach Dan Quinn's opening remarks that I just shared. One of the things that I do on my shows is I try to go back to every single, wherever there's a nugget that links to something that I saw, something that I want to make sure is reiterated as a very important point. Don't miss this, so that you can, like we like to do here, let me go ahead and show it. Use your clues so that you're using your clues most effectively. I'm almost giving you clues, giving you the nuggets, saying, please don't miss this because I didn't miss it. So I don't want you to miss it. Now, let me move on to another clip from head coach Dan Quinn's morning presser. I believe this question was from Washington Post Sam Fortier, my colleague, who asked about kind of the formulating of the depth chart. Check this out.
When you're formulating the depth chart, how much of it is, hey, this is where we're at, versus, hey, we either want to help these guys compete or motivate them, or we don't want to tip our hand to other teams? How do you go about formulating the
Yeah,
unofficial
not
depth?
much. Sean had a big role in this one. So I would say it's really where we're at. And that's why I made the point of, like, I know it's a story for you, and I recognize that you guys are doing your jobs to do that, but it's not internally. And it'll be much like you see at practice, into the same format of how we're rolling through things. But like I said, I'm really excited for what the next couple weeks will bring. There'll be some separation for people. Like, quite honestly, if I had a real depth chart right now, there'd probably be 15 starters, because I'm not quite certain between this person and this person. So that's why it's not as big a deal internally. We're just pushing it to find the information. And the good news, these things sort themselves out, but it does take some time and some practices to do that. And that's why I've been pretty adamant about, well, why aren't you doing this? Like, man, this is like, we're getting ready for the season. And so I want to make sure I got the big view for that.
In your last two stops with Matt Ryan and Dak, those were veteran guys. And so now with 3 preseason games, I guess, how do you go about building the plan for, hey, this is what we want Jaden to do in the preseason with Kliff and the other guys?
Yeah, I think it depends a little bit on the game, the opponent, what do we want to see. So it won't be the same, that we're looking for in each of the preseason games. But in this game, this is what we'd like to see. In this game was what we'd like to see. It also is about the practices too, because guys like Jaden will get more reps in those practices than they likely will in the games. And so they count a lot too. And that's why I'm a proponent of the practices and doing it one day, off day, then play the game. I really like that format.
So I just put up on the screen Lamar Bland's comment about DQ making it a point to say this is where we're at right now. So with that being said, Commanders fans, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Were you surprised? Were there some surprises? Are you alarmed? Is it a pleasantly surprised? Are you like, uh-oh, whoa, people are in trouble? And while you're dropping that in the chat, because I absolutely want to know, because, hey, when you have an opportunity to ask a question from one of the members of the credentialed Washington Commanders media, I think you should take that opportunity to ask the question. I do. When you have somebody who's on site all the time, you should ask. If you have the opportunity to do so, and if you could get to the question, absolutely. Going back to the release of Armani Rogers, in previous episodes, I believe it was the episode right before this one, I made it a point to actually share. I'm pulling on this thread where possible when on site to ask about the tight ends, because I want to see something. And it really stemmed from after the first day of pads, when Coach Quinn mentioned the players that stood out to him. And I think the first player he mentioned was tight end John Bates. I said, oh, if I was wearing pearls, I would have clutched them. Woo. Not that it's a bad thing at all. He's having an excellent camp. But depending on if you're taking 3 tight ends or 4, somebody's in trouble. Few people. Armani was definitely like, okay, he's out. All right. But then what happens if you're going 3 versus 4? If you look at the depth chart, I'm using DQs where we're at now. That's what he said. So this is where the team is at now. It checks out. It checks out. Another area, the defensive backs, and we'll get there in a moment. And I know that sometimes I get comments or messages, or this person is taking the reps with the 1s. This one is taking it with the 2s and the 3s. Hey. Okay. Where the team is at now. I think it is telling. But even when I say there's some formalities to this, well, yes and no, because DQ was real straight up. This is where we're at now. And definitely you all drop more in the chat. Listen, you probably heard myself as well as some of my media colleagues after the first, after the pads came on, and then one-on-ones, Brandon Coleman said, oh, that is abundantly clear on why they drafted Brandon Coleman. Going back to drafting, Coach Quinn also made it a point to mention in his opening remarks, if you heard it, you'll see some of the rookies up at the top because they've earned that spot. Listen, we said after the draft that this draft class makes a statement coming right in the gate, right in the door of what this organization wants to be. It mirrors exactly that, what they want to be today, what they want to be tomorrow, and in the future and beyond. That's what they show and they indicate. So to hear Dan Quinn kind of further reiterate, you're going to see some of the rookies now. You're going to see them, and they've earned that. That's a big, big, big remark to make. And I think there's more to come from that. Maybe not immediately, because if you really, really look at it in some of these areas, there's veterans there that can help the rookie build up. Where there's not so many veterans in that spot, my observation is that's a spot that they think the rookie they drafted could be ready to go sooner rather than later. And that is starting to materialize in real life. And I'm going to say that again in case someone missed that very important point. In some position groups where they may have drafted a rookie that might still have some edge, got to learn a bit, they brought in more veterans in that spot, or a veteran in that spot that can help. Where they think they got a rookie that can battle and earn that spot, maybe there's not so much added there for a reason. So, moving right along, I hope you caught that point. And if you're watching, definitely put in the chat, absolutely caught that point. I caught it. And I hope that you did. Now, I had an opportunity to ask Dan Quinn about the defensive backs, because that is another position group. Going back to the Emmanuel Forbes, as everybody has seen on the unofficial depth chart, he is on the second team. Yes, has he been taking first team reps? Yeah, absolutely. But he's on the second team based on, Dan Quinn said it, where they're at now. Second teamer. Yeah, first rep, second teamer. So we'll see what happens in the weeks to come. But check out Dan Quinn's response to my question on the defensive backs. Coach Quinn, speaking of Emmanuel Forbes, and I know you mentioned Mike Sanders still as well, what are you seeing out of your defensive back groups overall?
I think what we've seen, and from the safeties as well, we're talking about with Jeremy and, moving guys into different spots. That's important. You've seen Mike probably yesterday. He was playing outside. We also play him some in the nickel. And we're still in that fact-finding mission. Can he play outside? Can he play inside? And so those are the things that we look to. You've seen like Emmanuel returning on punts, and same things with Jahan. So we're constantly pushing to find out what else is there. What else can we look for? And sometimes, Candi, you find like there's more there and you keep going, or, okay, we gave that a look. Let's go back to, plan A or plan B. So I've been pleased with the work on those guys. I'm looking forward to seeing them in the game. Looking forward to seeing them against some other receivers in different formats. So the next, like I said, 2 weeks are going to be fun, because I like to see the different matchups and the different people, both at the Jets and at Miami. So I'm really looking forward to that.
And is there anything you absolutely do not want to see going into the first joint practice and first preseason game?
No, I think like, you know, you could say like a struggle, but, you know, that's kind of part of it too, to see how people respond and go. So I'm pretty wide open to go. I think the main thing I want to see is just, you know, like relentlessly competing. And so I'm certain that I'll see that. That's part of the identity of how we want to do things. So I've loved preseason for a long time because there's some opportunities for some of the younger players in their development to really showcase and prove it. For many of them, they've been waiting their whole lives to play in the NFL. It's okay, now you're here. And so what does that process look like on the first one? And I'll often, you know, have some veterans talk about their first preseason game. Oh, I was terrible. I was, you know, up all night worried, or, you know, was at the stadium too early. So knowing what that process looks like for the first guys in their first game, it's fun. And I think I look back to that night before that first preseason game for years and enjoy it for the rookies as much as anybody.
So I do have a list of things that I absolutely do not want to see, but I'm not the head coach of the Washington Commanders. All right. So, hey, it's a plenty things that I do not want to see, including, you know, the pre and post snap penalties. Drop them down a notch. Yes, while head coach Dan Quinn answered this question when I asked him before about the penalties, and he mentioned the combative penalties, you know, the PIs and all that, they can teach those things. But during one-on-ones, especially with the wide receivers and the corners, we're seeing a lot, too many to my liking. Not that my vote matters, but too many to my liking of just, that's going to get called every time. This is just throw the flag in advance, because this is so. No, he didn't get into it, and it's fair, right? That's fair, not to necessarily really have a list of absolutely not, at least a list that you wouldn't share publicly of what you absolutely do not want to see. If you've been paying attention to some of Dan Quinn's press conferences, he's already kind of alluded to things that he knows that they cannot do and should not be a part of their identity. So that's good. We can pull those threads and we can connect those dots there. But with it being the first preseason game, hey, maybe he's like, let's just see what happens. And to his point, relentlessly competing. He wants to see the guys compete. He wants to see that they're fighting for their roster spot. And I am totally on board with that. I did post a tweet from X. Are we calling them tweets still? Because it's not Twitter. Whichever. A post from X that the Jets got into a big fight today. So all we can do is hope that it doesn't happen when the Commanders get there on Thursday. They will fight each other like that. But it seems like a fight happens. Maybe not day one. Luckily, there's not 2 days of this. So we'll just see. If you have any questions so far, don't be shy. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. You are watching from the Coach from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders update. This is the training camp update. We're getting into some initial reactions about the first unofficial depth chart, going into some further insights from training camp, sharing some of the clips from press conferences, other things that I just do not want you all I don't want you to miss anything. Don't miss it. Use your clues. Don't miss it. Next couple weeks, big week for the Commanders. Big week. It's a big week across the NFL. It's a big week for everybody. Right? Because everybody has something to prove. Everybody's trying to get a roster spot, at least try to get on the practice squad. And this is a tough time as well. We've already seen now former Commanders players, people get released. They're already making changes. So drop your questions in the chat if you have any. This is in anticipation and prior to joint practice in the first preseason game with the New York Jets. While you all are doing that, let's get into another clip, shall we? Defensive coordinators, and the offensive coordinators, both Coach Joe Witt Jr. and Coach Kliff Kingsbury met with the media today. I do have a few clips from their press conferences that I want to share. I think it's important because, hey, once I catch something, I want to make sure I share it with my Bowie television watchers. So let's get into the first clip. Let's check it out.
For a guy like Bobby Wagner, people can look at like what maybe he doesn't do anymore. What does he do though, because he is a veteran, because he's played so much? What are some of the little advantages that gives him that you've even seen out here?
Well, I don't know what he doesn't do anymore. I mean, the guy, he runs to the ball. He's a leader. He's a great position tackler. He gets people in position. I mean, he can make all the checks that we don't necessarily have in that the other guys aren't ready for. He's making them. He understands what the offense is doing. We always talk about if you listen to the offense with your eyes, this formation will speak to you, and he is a believer in that, and so he can anticipate. So when guys do get a little bit longer in the tooth, their anticipation and their understanding of football has them playing faster than some rookies.
So, two things. One, I want to go back to a point that actually Dan Quinn made in his press conference about the fact-finding mission. They're still in the fact-finding mission. They're still trying to learn and know what they have. Now, I don't know how much of that they need to do for the folks that they brought in, right? The free agents in their draft picks. But they absolutely have to do that for the guys that are on previous roster. Don't miss that fact-finding mission. Write that in your notebook. It's very important. What Coach Witt shared about Bobby Wagner, what is applicable to the defense, is, listening to the offense with your eyes. I told a story on a previous episode about when Sam Cosmi shared with the media how Bobby Wagner was immediately able to pick up on what he was putting down in OTAs. And he's like, how does he know that? How does he know? How is he so smart? That's what Coach Witt is talking about. But that is the level of kind of football intelligence that they're wanting to see in their players, right? So keep that in mind. Write that in your notebook. That's very important. That is a very important point, to be able to. That's when we talk about reading offenses, or even if you say it on the offensive side, reading defenses, it's the same thing on the other side of the ball. Keep that in mind, because that is a very important point. All right. I see a couple of questions. So let me try to get into these questions, and then we're going to get back into some of the clips, because I have important points that I don't want you to miss. So Mazdak, CWall chaplain, Bowie TV supporter and advocate in the building, asking a question right here. And some of you all may have these questions as well. Do you think we could have any trades for low picks with some of these folks on the bubble? Yes, sure. And the reason why I'm answering it like that is because I'm going to always go back to remind you all things that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters have shared with the media. They shared it with the media in a press conference, then therefore they've shared it then publicly as well. And that is, they're going to keep digging for talent. They're going to keep trying to get better. What does that mean? Anything is possible. Anything is possible. Fighting and competing for a roster spot is what they mean. You have to bring it every single down. You have to. You have to. And Coach Witt talked a lot about that in his press conference. He said, hey, he tells the guys all the time, this is a now or next league. Now or next? Ooh. But that's what it is. And that's what you have to bring. And that's how you have to treat this. I mean, we've seen them make roster moves all throughout the week. They be what they say. Now or next. Moving some things around. And in each one of these cases, what was it? Okay, from the previous roster, Dax Milne today, Armani Rogers Sunday, Christian Holmes. We're seeing names that the fan base, all of us, are familiar with. Yeah, but hey, got to get better. got joint practices this week, first preseason game. We go back and look at the tape. It's not already working out. Go ahead and move them on. Now we're next. That is a very real thing. So absolutely, trades can happen, releases can happen. There'll be more because by default it has to be more. Only 53 can make the roster. So absolutely, anything is possible. Adam Peters can cook, by the way. I think you all know this already. Next question. So Lamar says, which position group do you feel could be poised to make the biggest improvement, O-line or secondary? O-line. It's easy. O-line. I think that there will be a difference. There will be a difference across the board. Let me be clear on that. There will be a difference across the board. When you hear me ask questions about the defensive backs, when, it's for a reason. I have questions. I'm still looking to see. And this is not based on who the team is matching up against every day, right? I need to see at joint practice. I need to see against another opponent. And when we're really, I think the offensive line, Sam Cosmi has to stay as healthy as possible, okay? Because when he has not been there, it has been a challenge. They love what they have in Brandon Coleman. Yes, Cornelius Lucas is still there. They really like Tyler Biage at center. And they, in the release, in the waiving of the injury designation earlier today, they did bring on another center guard. So they're still trying to get better there. But if between those two groups where I see the biggest improvement, I do see it on offensive line. Let me see this one here. Do you think the team is using a little bit of smoke screen regarding their kick returners? They don't really show that stuff to the media during practice. No, I don't think they're showing a smoke screen. I mean, based on the first unofficial depth chart, and let me be clear on this. They do show us that during practice. We can't shoot it. We can't film it. So I want to make sure there's a clear designation there. We're there. During training camp, we can see all of the morning practice. There is an afternoon walkthrough, and there are some other practices that as well. As you know, DQ mentioned a mock game that they had on Saturday that no, media is not invited to. During the regular season, the media is only able to watch like the first 20 to 30 minutes of practice, and then we can't watch anymore. But during camp, we can watch. So there, we just can't film special teams. We used to be able to film it. Now, ever since I asked the special teams question, we can't film it. But if you're, again, we're listening to Coach Quinn, if you're looking at the depth chart, where they are right now, that depth chart, that looked right. And he also shared in the press conference, therefore he shared it publicly. Y'all gonna hear me say that a lot. If he shares it in the press conference, that means he shared it publicly. So if he shared it with me or one of my colleagues, that may not be public unless you get permission. But he shared in the press conference, they've had Emmanuel Forbes, they've had Jahan working back there. You can take what's on the first unofficial depth chart. You can take what Coach Quinn has shared about that position, and then you will know, for the most part, who all has been back there. Is it everybody? No, because they are definitely trying to figure that out. And I do understand that it will be situational for sure, but for the most part, everybody has who's been back there. So it shouldn't be any surprises in that regard. I see Elias Wright's question on what are they doing with Jamin. And I knew somebody would ask about Jamin because a lot of people are asking about Jamin. So guess what? You're in luck because the next clip I have is Coach Joe Witt Jr. talking about Jamin Davis. Check it out.
And with Jamin Davis, obviously he's been worked both at linebacker, but mostly on the edge here. How have you seen him adjust to that transition, and how challenging is it when he's going up against going with other defensive ends who've been doing this for a lot longer than he has?
Well, you see him, and you got to give credit to Ryan Kerrigan first. He's doing a great job of working with him, but Jamin's been very willing to learn from a very good coach. And you see him each day getting better from just being a guy that can possibly rush the passer to being a guy that can play the run, all right, understand stunts, and definitely rush the passer, what we wanted to see. He is a big man that has power, and I've been pleased with what he's doing and his buy-in to looking at doing a little bit something different.
So that's Coach Witt, straight up, no chaser. That's what it is for sure. And that is in alignment with what we're seeing at practice. Jamin Davis is one. If you look at the depth chart, go back to the first unofficial depth chart, is based on where they are right now and see where Jamin is. It's based on where they are right now. Okay. It will be interesting. That is one player that everybody should have penciled in and wanting to see. I know I do, in joint practices and in these first 2 preseason games. Is this potentially, now this is a player that I think could be successful. On the previous episode, I talked a lot about unlearning things from the previous culture and now trying to learn new things. And he is a player that I've had my eye on anyway, because I knew instantly that they were going to try to use him as an edge rusher. We knew that's what they were coming in. Hey, this is where he could be most effective. Let's see how he does here. They have him listed at, I think, as the outside linebacker. So we'll see. Do I think he could be successful? Absolutely. I believe Jamin thinks he could be successful. This is the happiest I've seen Jamin. So I seriously hope it works out for him as a Washington Commander. Really, I do. But that depth chart is where they are right now. And so is this potentially somebody you could see if they make some great move? He flashes, has some great highlights, could potentially be involved in the trade. Yes, sure, he could be if he shows off. Is this somebody, if he doesn't show off, could be left out in the cold? Could be. I think so, but I don't think anybody wants that. That's the thing. So keep your eye on it. But Coach Witt is that's the answer right now. But it's definitely a player that you're gonna have to come out. You're gonna have to come up off that edge like lightning on Thursday and Saturday, for sure. See what you got. Now, definitely keep the questions coming. Why you got me? Because this is leading up to joint practices and first preseason game. Reactions to the first unofficial depth chart, training camp. Next up is a clip of a question that I had for Coach Witt on the defensive line. Check it out.
Coach Witt, Coach Quinn mentioned the chemistry that Dorrance Armstrong and Jonathan Allen are building. What can you say about the overall chemistry of the defensive line?
Tap has done an outstanding job of holding those guys accountable. And then the players, we always talk about it's the players huddle. DA and Jonathan, and not just those guys, Payne and Cleve and Dante, they've just formed a close bond, and you can tell how the way they rush, how the way they play blocks, that there's nobody up there being selfish. Everybody's right now being unselfish, and we're putting the quarterbacks in a whirlwind, and we're hitting runs, we're hitting blocks, and they're where they're supposed to be. So, and it comes from being close. I believe that players that like each other genuinely and that are close will play better. And that's what you're getting from them right now. Hopefully we can carry that to New Jersey when we go against the Jets, and it keeps moving forward. But right now I've been really pleased with the D-line.
I thought that was a very important question to ask because Coach Quinn mentioned, as I shared with Coach Witt, about the chemistry that he saw from Jonathan Allen and Dorrance Armstrong. But it's also just very important because everybody everywhere probably was disappointed in the defensive line. We know that there's been changes made. Everybody will say, how can you feel the shoes of a Montez Sweat? and both, Chase Young, right, wrong, and indifferent on how people perceived or thought about Chase's performance. These are still two players that meant a lot to your locker room and a lot to the football team. So how is this translating? How is this going to be new? How's it going to be different? How's it going to be better amongst all the other things? And so far, and I've shared on previous episodes, hey, when I go over there with the defensive line in position drills, I'm like, whoa, this is okay. This is intense. Let me go over here. Let me mosey on back down the way here and see what everybody else is doing. And then the addition, of course, of Johnny Newton, it's good things. I will say, though, for me and what I'm observing so far, where my concern becomes, and this is across the board, let me be clear on this, it's with the second team. It is with the second team. As I shared it, I posted it, I was like, well, whoa, when Sam Cosmi is out, there is a difference with the first team offensive line. He's not there. It's a concern. We know that Andrew Wiley's been dealing with, a little bit of an injury, so we'll see what happens there. But no Sam Cosmi is a clear difference. I would say the same thing with the defensive line. If a first teamer goes down, goes out, the backups got to get a little bit stronger in that area. But again, that's a team thing, and I'm sure many teams experience that. But you just, how much of a drop off do you want to see in your team if you're talking about competing in December, January, February? Because now when I talk to people, they don't talk to me just about the regular season. They're talking about longevity through December, January, and February. That is how they're speaking now. And it's like, oh, okay. This goes to my next question that I see here from D'Angelo Pope. Is JD5 the real deal? Here's what I'll say. I think everyone should temper their expectations and let it be a good thing when you're pleasantly surprised. I think that Jaden is doing everything you would want a rookie quarterback to do. Everybody is complimentary of him, and it's real. Nobody's putting on. Nobody, it's not smoke and mirrors. It's not anything, It's for real. He wants to get it. He wants to be great. He loves playing football. I said this on the episode previously, and I don't think people were feeling it when I first said he loves playing football. And I said, all these guys love playing football. But here's one thing I could tell you from a person that loves doing what they do. You got to love it. And that game right there, football is hard. It's difficult. It is stressful, and it is just a lot. And every single solitary person that is working together to make the team and the organization great has to absolutely love it in order to be successful. And this is a leader that loves it. And hey, the coaching staff and everybody else in the players tour said, hey, Marcus Mariota isn't the slouch now. He's not a slouch. He's not a slouch, everybody. He's good. He's having a decent camp as well. So you can't, hey, Sam Hartman, Jeff Driscoll, the quarterback room is phenomenal. They look like they're having a really good time. They look like they're having a lot of fun. I don't know, D'Angelo, if you caught Jaden Daniels, or if you all caught, chime in, love button, fire emoji in the chat, if you all caught Jaden Daniels' press conference when my colleagues at DC News Now asked him about starting, and he was like, starting? I mean, I don't know if I'm starting, but I know I'm playing. I know I'm playing, but I don't know. See y'all Saturday, basically, is what he said. Humble as pie, but he know he can ball. But he also knows he's got a lot to learn. The NFL is not a game. And right now, even though it's a game, it's not a game. You understand what I'm saying? No pun intended, but it's different. So I think he's going to be great. I I don't know what's going to happen because it's just too much. It's too many things that is just too much. And I think he's phenomenal. I think he's a breath of fresh air. I see him and so many other players. He's part of that nucleus that this organization brought in to say these are the types of players we want in our organization. So this rookie class they're good. They're very good. And we'll see soon just how good they are. But for right now, I'm pleased. I'm pleased with what I've seen so far. But temper expectations, you all. We done been down this road before. Just temper the expectations, but prepare to be pleasantly surprised. I think it'll be a good thing. Really, I do. But I think just watch it play out. I think patience is probably the best way to go. And if you're pleasantly surprised in the end, then it's a good thing for all parties involved. It's definitely a good thing for me. It's a great thing for you. It's even a better thing for the organization. So then I hope I answered your question because that was a lot. If you just tuned in, you're watching from the Coaching from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update. I am your host, CWall. We're going through initial depth chart reactions. I wasn't surprised. I didn't say, oh my goodness. Nope, no surprises here. Looks about right. Is what it is based on where they are right now. Hey, I can dig it. Getting into the offense and the question about Jaden Daniels. Drop any other questions you have in the chat. I'm going to switch over to some clips from Coach Kliff Kingsbury from his press conference. Check it out.
Hey, Kliff, Ben Standig with The Athletic. In terms of putting in the offense, I know part of the advantage you guys have right now is nobody's quite sure what's going to happen, so maybe you're not showing everything out here. How's that working where you're not quite showing everything, but you're trying to install this whole offense?
Right, yeah, you pick your spots, there's no doubt. I mean, preseason, we're not going to show much. We're going to try to operate and, get guys feeling game-like situations and the travel and warm-ups and all that. But our guys have done a nice job, and we've had the opportunity to rep what we're going to rep in season, to attack it and understand those reps got to be very meaningful because we're not going to show everything we have just yet. We're going to save that for Tampa Bay.
There we go. Thank you, Coach Kliff. I didn't even realize you did that. Tempering expectations. Not going to show you everything. Saving that for Tampa Bay week 1. This is, though, about seeing what's the best package you can pull together on your 53. This is what that is about. But you all, when you're sitting at home, when you're sitting at watching the games, it's about the competition, as DQ said, relentlessly competing, getting the best package together to put out the best product that they can. But do not expect them to show you the playbook. Tempering expectation starts right there, everyone. And I want you to roll with me on that one. Promise that you won't get too carried away. Don't, please. I saw a question in the chat about Brandon Coleman, and we talked about that at the top of the show, so you might want to circle back after the live is done. But hey, as of right now, he's a starter. So that means he's doing great. Moving right along to another comment clip on Jaden Daniels from Coach Kingsbury. Check it out.
He talked about wanting to make explosive plays with his legs. The coaches maybe want him to slide more. How much do you communicate about him protecting himself, and what's your degree of confidence he will?
He will. We've harped on it a lot. But, you love the competitive nature. It's just there's a time and a place for it. There's a situation for it, and there's a situation to play the next play. And what's awesome is having Marcus Mariota, who's with a similar talent with his legs coming in. And so he had to learn when to get down, when to surrender, when the party's over. And to have a guy like that with his knowledge helping Jaden through this deal has been really special for all of us because I wasn't quite the runner those two were. So it's a little bit better advice coming from Marcus.
I feel like that's a good thing. I feel like it is a good thing. I want to make this. Someone is Lamar is mentioning about Coach Kliff wearing shades to the press conference. Cool as a cucumber. Cool as a cucumber. I don't hear him much, but I see him all the time, and I see him in the trenches with his offense. In Zach Ertz's press conference, he mentioned that this is the happiest he has seen Coach Kingsbury. And because I'm just now meeting him, never seen him before, never, met him or seen him in action, I don't have anything to compare it to. But of course, Zach Ertz does and would. So I think it is huge for his player to say, this is the happiest I've seen him. He's just rejuvenated, right? And Zach Ertz said the same thing to him, because quick plug, going back to the tight end group, Zach Ertz is looking I've been saying this on episode after episode after episode. Zach Ertz is looking very vintage Zach Ertz-ish for sure. Okay. I'm like, how many years you been in the league? So because of that, I saw that comment. I wanted to acknowledge it. And I think they feel really good about their offense and what they can do. And they're excited to get it going. They wear these shirts. And I think this was a question as well. What is it, doing hard-ish with good people? They like it. They're coalescing. And it's a great thing. It's nice. It's nice to see. One more clip for this episode. And Al Williams, I see you say that you are late. Read up in the chat. You all might have to watch it later, because we definitely covered a lot of ground. We've been on here now for almost an hour, so your girl has been giving you all of the scoop, all that I can. But I asked Coach Kingsbury about wide receiver Jahan Dotson. Check out his response here.
Coach, going back to the wide receiver group for a moment, what are you seeing out of Jahan Dotson?
He has tremendous ball skills. He's played in a couple different systems, since he's gotten to the league. And I think once he gets comfortable with us, whether it's inside, outside, I think you're going to see him just really take off. He had a great catch today. But the one thing I like about him is when you challenge him and you ask him to compete, he's going to go and he's going to compete his tail off and make the plays. And so been really happy with what I've seen from him. I love his competitive nature, and I think he's just going to continue to get better. I can tell him and Jaden have a good rapport, which is encouraging.
So in a previous episode, I shared that Jahan Dotson and Jaden Daniels had worked out together, I think last year and this year. This is before Jaden was drafted. And Coach bringing that up is a very good thing. Write it in your notebook. Use your clues on that one. Very good thing. Also, I think that Coach Kingsbury mentioning the comfortability, right? When Jahan gets comfortable, right? I thought that was important point. And he mentioned the catch that Jahan had in practice, and it was phenomenal. Even I had to smile and say, good job, Jahan. Because it's been a little quiet, but he's another player that I'm like, there's so much more there. And we saw just the rookie Jahan, second year Jahan, we all know what went down, the whole team offense, right? So we'll see how it goes. Again, everybody needs to keep their eyes all the way open with this here. Joint practices, you all. And yes, you can catch the replay on YouTube. You should. It should be on YouTube. It's probably even on Facebook. So soon as the stream ends, you should be able to watch it, I think, again, for sure. So joint practices, I will be there. Prayers up for traveling mercies for all traveling. Then there's practice in Ashburn Monday and Tuesday. Then there's a travel day for all parties involved on Wednesday down to Miami traveling mercies all along the way. So we'll see what happens. I know I do shows recorded, and then we'll see how it goes. I've not done a live in a very long time. So you all will have to let me know if the live format worked, if the recordings work. You can always watch the lives again. But hey, I enjoy this. And I enjoyed taking the questions. We're at day 10 of camp. First unofficial depth chart came out. Joint practice is coming up. So I already knew folks that have questions, this is the opportunity to snag me and say, what's up? What's going on? But the first unofficial depth chart, I think they got it right. Based on what I see every day, I think they got it right. So no surprises here. I'm always open to take questions, and maybe it just won't come up until the next episode. Right now, I don't know when the next episode will be. We'll see. Because of the schedule, I just don't know. But even still, I'm still on here for a moment. If you have another question, you better speak now, or you have to wait until after joint practices or after the preseason game. Maybe do another long one in anticipation of the Dolphins. Restaurant things, who knows? I'll probably be working the entire time I'm there. So we did, as a media group, we did kind of talk about, where's everybody going to do this and do that. And like, I'm probably, when I'm not working, I'll probably be catching some Z's, trying to sleep. So you all listen, subscribe to Bowie_TV, Bowie TV on YouTube. If you're in the Washington metropolitan area, it is on Verizon Channel 11, Comcast Xfinity Channel 77. You all want to make sure you stay locked right on in to Bowie TV, to myself, giving you all of the Washington Commanders updates, exclusive insights from training camp. This cadence, this access will continue all throughout the regular season. So make sure you all stay locked in for sure. If you're on X, you can follow me, as you can see, at CWall SE. I do updates there as well. So you all listen, thank you so very much for hanging out with me for a whole hour. This is the second episode. Well, I typically can go an hour, especially when there's clips and there's things that I want to share. But you guys did it again. The previous episode was an hour, as was this one. So listen, more to come. And like DQ said, these next couple of weeks are going to be a blast. So I hope you all are looking forward to it just as much as I am. I'll be seeing you all again soon.